Welcome back to another edition of Six Borough Sports, your home for New York and South Florida sports. Today, we're going to talk some Heat. We're going to talk some Miami FC for the first time on this channel. They beat up on Orlando. It was great. And then we're going to finish up with some NFL stuff. We had some Jets, more Jets shenanigans, and the Dolphins are cutting salary, and the Giants are posturing for the NFL draft. But first, let's start with the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat have been playing well. They've been playing a bunch of Western teams. Unfortunately, though, they lost to the Nuggets um, on Thursday, 97 to 103. It was a close game, but it seems like Miami still struggles with the Nuggets even after the finals. But they have been playing well. They've been 11-3 in their last 14 games, and their only losses were to the Celtics, Clippers, and Nuggets by single digits. So they're playing really well. They're gearing up for the playoffs. The Knicks are still battling injuries, and they're playing Cleveland tonight. That's a good test for the Knicks. Cleveland is having a fantastic season, and they're going to be a bigger playoff threat than they were last year. They were kind of pushed aside by the Knicks in the first round. I don't think that's going to happen this time. So I'm very eager to see how they do. But the Heat need to work in Terry Rozier into the lineup a little better. They need his scoring to pick up, and until that happens, they're not going to have enough to beat these teams. I mean, the Celtics, they're a better team. They just blew out the Warriors tonight by 50 points. That's another 50-point win for them. One of the other ones was against the Nets. So the Celtics are a much better team than they were last year. Whether or not that translates to the playoffs is another story. But we'll see what happens with that. Moving on, going to talk some Miami FC. Miami FC was all over Orlando. Messi with 2 goals, Suarez with 2 goals. I mean, this year Miami FC is pretty much all in on going for the MLS championship. This is their real chance. Last year, Messi had joined the team a little late. He did generate some hype. That I was watching that first game down in Miami, and it was crazy where he hit the penalty kick to win near the end of the game. It was absolutely one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like storybook, like introduction to American. He's been in American sports, but like to play for an American team, um, it's crazy. But yeah, Miami FC, they looked really good. The question will be if they can maintain a good record while getting the older guys their rest. Um, they dabbled in that last year. It gets tricky with this team because ticket prices and the hype. People spend a lot of money on these tickets expecting to see Messi, and he's like he needs his rest. He's playing against these younger guys, and but I think he's going to play more this year because they have a chance to win the MLS title. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. It's good to see the MLS season back again and see Miami FC really actually compete this year. Because last year it was kind of just like an exhibition for next year. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next year they finally get the stadium out in down actually in Miami. Right now they're playing in Fort Lauderdale, the Fort Lauderdale area. But it will be cool that they'll have a brand new stadium to play in down in Miami. And I think that's also the year of the World Cup. So they'll have the World Cup, Messi down here. It's going to be crazy. And who knows, maybe they'll put a Super Bowl down here too again. I know the next Super Bowl's in New Orleans, which is a good location. Everybody was raving about the Vegas. They were saying Vegas was a great location. But I am excited. to see what Miami FC can do, and hopefully they can win an MLS Cup. That would Miami hasn't won a championship since. I mean, this isn't one of the four major sports, but since the Heat won with the second one with LeBron. But they've gotten close with the Heat and with the Panthers, and maybe the Panthers can do it this year. That would be another team that's close. Um, but we'll see what happens with that. But there's a lot of movement and motion with soccer, or what some people call football down here, and it's definitely exciting when you have Messi playing. And finally, we're going to talk some NFL. Um, the Jets continue to show that their continued three-ring circus dumpster fire status. McCole Hardman coming out. Well, he didn't come out. Sauce Gardner came out, and another teammate came out and suggested that McCole Hardman was disgruntled, and because of this, he had leaked game plans to the Philadelphia Eagles, which ironically enough didn't help the Eagles. It's like, well, to be fair, I don't think the Jets like have an offensive game plan. So when you say, "Oh, the game plan is to, you know, flounder the entire game and not really know what's going on," it doesn't really help the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles got the Jets' defensive game plan, I think that would have been a little more helpful because they struggled in the toward the end of that game, and it wasn't the Jets' offense that won that game, that's for sure. Um, but yeah, it's just more Jets dysfunction, and why are we dragging in people like he won the Super Bowl and just like it's over, the season's over. There was like people were asking if the NFL is going to investigate it. The NFL's not going to investigate it. They have too much gambling stuff going on. They don't care. So it's going to have to if something's going to happen, it's going to be have to be an outside thing. Like someone sues because the it affected betting, I guess. But that's going to be hard to prove, and especially because the Eagles lost the game. The Eagles should have won that game if they had insider information. Um, so it's kind of like, all right, that's fine, I guess. And again, dragging McCole Hardman into this, if you're a Jet, just doesn't make sense because it shows how dysfunctional you are while he goes to another team and gets the Super Bowl winning catch. So I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. The whole thing is just weird. And again, it's the Jets just making headlines for the wrong reasons. Um, I did hear some Jet fans, maybe not so much Jet fans, but like New York sports radio talking about like, oh, we should get Justin Jefferson. I'm like, Justin Jefferson doesn't fix the problem that you can't block. They need to fix their offensive line. They should be drafting and signing free agents, and also there is a good wide receiver option who just became available. He was released also by the Chiefs. Valdez Scantling. He played with Rodgers out in Green Bay. He's a free agent now. I would, if I were the Jets, I would try to talk to him rather than giving up all your draft capital for a guy who may or may not uh the Vikings might not even make that deal, but why are you giving up all that draft capital? Because you're only going to have Rodgers for maybe 1 year if you're lucky, two if you're really lucky. So to me, that plan doesn't really make sense to go after Jefferson. Um, because again, it's not fixing the major problem. The problem that caused all of this was you didn't have an offensive line. And that also affected Zach Wilson too. I think the Jets, if they had a decent offensive line, were able to just run the ball a little bit, and he wasn't running for his life. I think the Jets might have made the playoffs in place of the Bills. I think the Dolphins would have won the division, and then the Bills would have, because they went on that hot streak toward the end. I think the Bills would have floundered while the Jets won. But that didn't happen because the Jets don't have an offensive line, and they were not able to fix it. So. And it does, based on the conversations that I've been hearing around the Jets, they're not going to fix it. But they still have the draft. There's still free agency, so we'll see what happens. Offensive linemen are not going to be cheap. Everybody's looking for them, including their roommate at MetLife Stadium, the New York Giants. The Giants are pretty interesting with the draft coming up. Um, I've heard rumors that they might be trying to trade up for Williams. They've been talking about moving up for Caleb Williams. I don't know if I like the move. I think they should stand pat and draft a quarterback that they like in the first or second round and then draft offensive linemen. I don't want to give up. They're going to have to give up a lot of draft capital because that's what other teams did the other year. That Bryce Young deal and the Trey Lance deal threw off the whole market for the first pick in the draft. And they'd have to trade Kayvon Thibodeau, and I know he didn't have the greatest year last year, but he's not like a bust, unlike Evan Neal. And speaking of which, the Giants need more offensive line help. So until they fix the offensive line, I'm not very confident, even with Daniel Jones or with a rookie. But I am excited to. I want them to get a quarterback of the future. I want them to draft him and have him sit a year or maybe even a second year. But well, it would be 1 year because Daniel Jones they can like opt out of his deal and not have any cap penalty. Unlike the Broncos and Russell Wilson, where it's like an awful, terrible cap penalty. But we'll see. The Giants don't have as much cap space as I would have hoped. Um, they have cap space, but they're not. They're doing okay. You'd think they would be like top 10 with the lack of talent on the team, but they're not. I think Saquon is gone. I think Saquon's going to end up in Houston, which is kind of scary if they use him correctly. The Giants didn't use him right. They didn't have an offensive line. And on top of it, he's not like a ground and pound back. He's more of a finesse back. So he needs like space to operate. And uh, it's hard to do that with no offensive line. And then on top of which, they're asking him to break tackles. He needs to outspeed his defenders. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I would look for the Giants to maybe go out and get Singletary because Singletary played with Dable up in Buffalo. Shout out to former FAU Owl. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do there. They could draft a running back, drafting running backs like in the third or fourth round, and then sign someone. There's a bunch of options. Another good place for Saquon, I think, if he did leave, would be LA. I was about to say San Diego, but I think LA would be interesting with Herbert and Harbaugh. Um, I think that would be a fun place for him to go. And he would go against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is like the make it or break it year for Herbert. Like if Herbert can't win with Harbaugh and the system in place, then it might be a Herbert problem. A lot of people really like Herbert, and they say he puts up these numbers and stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, so did Philip Rivers, and it's a situational stuff. But he has shown flashes where he's like, geez, like he could keep up with like Mahomes in a shootout. But then there's other times where it's like, I don't know. But the team around him has definitely not executed properly, and you can see that. Uh, the last year was a disaster, and it got him hurt with Brandon Staley's shenanigans. Who is now on the Niners staff, by the way. He didn't get the DC job, but he's now on the Niners staff. Thank God he didn't come to the Dolphins. Oh, I didn't want him on the Dolphins. And finally, the speaking of the Dolphins, the Dolphins are trying to escape cap hell. They released Xavier Howard today, or not today. That was a little while ago. Um, and yeah, they're just trying to dump cap. They got a bunch of people they need to resign. Tua's going to have to get paid. He's going to get paid more than he's worth to the team, but you got to pay him because you're not going to replace him. So there's that. So the Dolphins they're in a rough spot because they had a good roster, because they weren't paying Tua, and now they have to pay Tua, and now it's going to be a detriment to the roster. Hopefully, takes the next step. Like I said in previous videos, I want Tua to do a little more like wide open field scrambling, not like diving for the first down, but like there's no one in front of you, get that first down. And that's what Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl. That was a design run, but still, he ran it for the first down when they needed him to do it. Tua is going to have to do it that next year. It's just going to be another part of his game, and he does have like some weird interception games, like frequent interception games. The Dolphins also need to get better at like going off script. It's like, all right, things aren't going to plan. Let's figure this out. They do a good job. They did a good job of running the ball, and that's another issue is Mostert. Do you re-sign Mostert because he's getting up there to be a running back, and he had his best year ever. Um, but they have Achan, so I think they're just going to lean on Achan and probably pick up another back. But yeah, the Dolphins have their work. All three teams, the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Giants, all have their work cut out for them. And even if you want to extend it up into New York, I don't really consider the Bills part of this channel's purview. But the Bills, they're in cap hell as well. That Von Miller contract is murdering them. And then on top of it, they got Diggs, who's week to week is disgruntled. I'm sure Josh Allen's getting frustrated. So there's a lot of stuff going on with these teams, a lot of cap issues and tricky situations that they need to resolve. But we'll see what happens. But that's it for this week. Please remember to like, comment, and to subscribe. We're gonna keep releasing a video every week. I think I might be in a few weeks or so releasing videos, maybe like over the weekend and then during the week, like on Wednesdays and Thursdays, maybe. But we'll see in the future. But once again, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you then.